We clear here in my virtual room as we go behind the scenes of gamer comedy Dead Pixels with the writer and some of the cast. So, without further ado, I would like to say hello to the lovely Alexa Davies, who plays Meg. We've also got Charlotte Ritchie, who plays Alison, and the show's writer and producer, Jon Brown. Hello. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hey. Hello. So, this is a question to you all, but let's start with Jon first. So a lot of people have been finding themselves during lockdown, baking for their lives, doing their Instagram workouts. But what have you been doing? What have you been reading, watching, and playing in this time?
Playing, I finally learned how to play Civilization 6, which I've been meaning to do for a long time. I eventually got quite good at it, and then I killed Gandhi, which took me a long time. Yeah, I dropped a nuke on Gandhi and killed him, which was one of those things that you think, I'm going to do that, it's going to be good. And then you do it, and then you just feel quite sad when you see his little defeated body come up, and you're like, oh no, I've killed Gandhi. So that was
Gandhi, as in the famous Gandhi.
The historical figure Gandhi. Yeah, he was like obviously quite peaceful, and he wasn't attacking me. So I developed nuclear weapons and dropped them on him.
I love that. So it's a good start then to Jon. Everyone, Jon Brown, everyone. Jon Brown. Everyone. I love that. And a same question to you, Alexa. What have you been doing? Reading, playing? What have you been doing in this time?
Not reading at all. I feel like reading is non-existent now because it just feels boring. Gaming, I gaming as well. I was playing Link's Awakening for ages, have 2 musical instruments left to get, but it's just so hard. Like I think it's harder than Breath of the Wild. And then obviously Last of Us Part 2 came out, and we got through that way too quickly, and that was fantastic. But now I'm just waiting. I just really want a PS5 now, and I'm just waiting. I want to play that Harry Potter game.
Oh my God, don't even, like, seriously, the PS5. Was there anything else from that PS5 event that you quite fancied?
Not really. I've tried playing the Spider-Man game on the PS4 and I didn't love it. So I don't think I'll go for that one. It's the Hogwarts thing, because will I be able to make it look like me?
I'm not sure.
That's what I'm getting from it, is that I'm going to be able to make a tiny Hogwarts me.
I want that. That's what I would play it for.
That's what I want to do.
Yeah, they should do. And what about you, Charlotte? What about you? What have you been doing in this time? Playing, reading, watching?
Genuinely not doing anything at all. Sorry, that's my phone. That's so unprofessional. So little. Like I was saying to you earlier, it's astounding how small the amount of things I've done is. We did have a PS2 just to join in with to be quite honest about it. And we played the old Grand Theft Auto, which was nice, a little heart back to being a kid. And we just recently actually did procure a PS4 from my brother. So that's getting going soon. But that's all I can contribute on that part. Otherwise, a lot of looking out the window. A lot of that.
Okay. Let's talk about we're very excited about season 2 of Dead Pixels. Okay, so for any fans who haven't seen the first season, this is a question to Alexa and Charlotte. Tell us a little bit about your characters and what they got up to in season 1. So we'll start with you, Alexa.
I play Megan Jeffries, and she is quite chaotic. She's very into gaming, specifically at this moment in time, a game called Kingdom Scrolls, which she's been playing for 2 years with her best friend and flatmate, Nikki. And she kind of focuses solely on that, and everything else that happens is just, background noise to her. And it's just kind of the journey of them completing the game whilst also navigating normal life. And that's how we leave it in episode 6.
Are there any similarities, would you say, between you and your character, Alexa?
I always say no. I'm always like, no, because in some ways we are so different. Like, I plan my meals every week, and I don't like going out that's the same as Meg, actually. We have similarities in that we are creatures of habit, but we just have very different habits.
And what about you, Charlotte? Let's talk about your character then, Alison. So tell us a little bit about Alison for those who don't know.
Alison would have been insufferable to live with in lockdown, I think. Alison is their housemate who doesn't play video games and computer games. Sorry, I'm so worried about saying the wrong term. So she basically spends her time sort of trying to lure Nikki and Meg out of their bedrooms into what she would deem like the real world and the important world. And she tries to kind of make them healthy and in her eyes, functioning people. So that's kind of her main aim in life, actually, is to sort of focus all of her attention on them and fixing them. So yeah.
In terms of games, have any of you ever been, now I know Jon, you mentioned like Civilization and blowing Gandhi up at the beginning of the interview, but tell me, like, I'll start with Jon actually. Were you a big gamer growing up? Like, what were your kind of like childhood sort of games that you played, if you were?
I think my peak as a gamer was Super Nintendo period. I was pretty heavily into it then as a kind of awkward, sort of socially maladjusted young boy. So I spent a lot of time playing Street Fighter 2, which I can still do to a pretty high level. That's the one thing that I can pick up pretty quickly, and it's like it's the kind of muscle memory. So that was like my real peak. And then after that, I think what happened, I left university and started writing for like games magazines. So I was a games journalist for a while. And I think like most people, when you kind of turn your passion into a job, there's a kind of slight fallout where games became just more work for me, I guess. So for quite a long time, I was off doing that, and I kind of lost the joy of it, I think. Rediscovering it, and now also with my kids, it's a whole new thing of playing Fortnite with my son and daughter, and in a squad flying around in a helicopter, and they both look after me like I'm a kind of elderly man that's doing. My son basically has to pick me up and carry me around sometimes, which is heartwarming and emasculating at the same time. But to play games with them is fun. Yeah, that's great.
But have you ever introduced your kids to any of the games that you played growing up?
I did briefly, yeah, but I mean, I feel like retro games are so hard, and like I got an old Super Nintendo, one of the mini ones, and played games with them, but the games are just so unforgiving back then, and compared to now, so that they just found it confusing and annoying and quite boring, and it just, games nowadays, I guess they're kind of balanced, and like things like Fortnite would draw you in, make it quite easy, and then it would progressively get more difficult. Whereas some of the platform games from that point, you can be dead in 10 seconds and they're just like, Daddy, what's going on? Why am I dead? So they didn't really go so well. So we stick to that kind of new stuff, Fall Guys and Fortnite. Yeah.
And what about you, Alexa? You did mention some games earlier on, but did you grow up as a gamer, or is it something that you discovered more as you became an adult?
No, I think I played more so as a young person. I think we got a PS2 when I was like, 12, 11. And there was some games. So we had this game called Airblade, which I would never play the story mode of because I wasn't good enough, because it was like my first game ever. But you could just do like free kind of, basically had a hoverboard skateboard. And that was the entire premise of the game. But that was fun. I also loved Burnout, like a racing game.
Yes.
Which was so weirdly fun to do as a child because you can't drive. And then the Uncharted games for me were where that was the first kind of series of games that I played and loved. And I've played all of them now. That's kind of the one that's followed me into being an adult.
Yes. And last but not least, Charlotte, what about you in terms of gaming? What did you grow up with?
I'm getting some tips from Jon on the group chat.
I can see the group chat, the private chat. So what are you going to say compared to what I'm reading here?
I don't have any good answers. I did have a PS2, same as the one that was brought back by my flatmate for lockdown, but it was Tony Hawk Pro Skater and it was GTA, and that's basically it. Oh, and a game called Splashdown, which I liked mainly it was a jet ski game, and I liked it mainly for the soundtrack, which was sort of generally like cheesy rock, like Smash Mouth, stuff like that. So
yes. You guys are making me feel old because my first console was an Atari ST and I played RoboCod. James Pond.
Oh
RoboCod.
yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that too.
We had a Nintendo 64 too, but that was not my main. As if I had a main console. Anyway.
So I wanted to talk about gaming stereotypes. Okay, there's a lot. I don't want to talk about the negative ones. I think we all know what the negative gaming stereotypes are for those who aren't maybe so au fait with games and things. But tell me, everyone, what you think about the positive gaming stereotypes are? What are the positive things about being a gamer? Jon, what would you say is positive about being involved in that world?
I mean, I would say the thing that I like most about gamers and gaming culture is that often gamers are very self-aware. I think often they're portrayed as being kind of lost in these worlds and they have no sense of how absurd it is. And I don't think that's true. I think most people that play games, I think it's possible for you to acknowledge that it's stupid to spend 40 hours of your life collecting those seeds in Breath of the Wild, and that is stupid on one level, but also on the other hand, there is meaning in it. And I think, like I think we say in the show at some point, it's like, is it any more or less meaningful to run a marathon than it is to spend 70 hours of your life on a video game? And so I think gamers don't get enough credit for that. I think people don't realize that they are aware that gaming on the one hand can be a very stupid thing to devote your life to, but then what isn't, in a way, it's connections, I think, and it's a form of expression and all of that stuff. So yeah, I think that's the downside of the kind of geek stereotypes that you see on TV most of the time.
And what would you say to that, Alexa, the positive things about being a gamer? I thought it was some really good points there, Jon, but what about you, Alexa?
I think outside looking, because I game a bit, but I wouldn't say that I'm a massive gamer. But when, did everyone watch that series on Netflix recently about gaming? About the whole industry from start to finish.
It's so interesting.
Very interesting. And I love, especially when it gets into this kind of generation of team sports and it becoming a huge deal that people train for. And I love that. And I think, I think gamers are incredibly, though they are dedicated, and it becomes kind of a team event. I never play online because I don't like sharing with people, but you see these like Nikki and Meg and Usman in the show, they have real kind of close ties because of it, and I think that's something that outsiders will never kind of experience. But I think that's amazing. I mean, did you all hear about that kid that was gaming with his friend from America and he passed out and she called the ambulance from the other end of the game?
Wow.
Wow. I haven't heard of that. Yeah, I think
that's good that she did. Yeah.
And
the sense of community, I'd say, mostly.
What about you, Charlotte? Would you like to add to that? Do you have anything else to add in terms of the positive side of being a gamer?
I think those guys have summed it up. No, I think there is. I do think, and this is not to be too promotional about this, but the show has sort of made me think more about this than something I normally would. I feel very jealous of that sort of online, although Alexa's shunning it, the online community does seem like a really appealing thing, like the international element of it, the sort of timeless day to night. Presumably, if you don't have to worry about getting up for anything or going to bed before anything, then you can just sort of go on and you lose all sense of time. I think that's really appealing. That connectedness definitely appeals to me. So maybe if I get my PS4 running, and then I can get involved in that. Maybe.
And on the back of that, Jon, I wanted to ask you specifically about writing the show. And so in terms of fandoms, I mean, for those who haven't seen season 1, if you're not a gamer, there's still something there for you, which is lovely because you've made it a show that is very inclusive to anybody. When you were writing the show, did you have that in mind? Because it's such a niche subject, how do you sort of open that out so that anyone watching can enjoy it?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a balancing act. And I was always keen. I felt frustration of all the TV shows that I'd ever seen from growing up, that I'd never seen gaming portrayed in a way that ever felt real, with a couple of exceptions, but it's so rare. It's mostly kids in front of a TV and they're going like, ooh. You're like, no, when you play games, it is basically this. And it's like tiny thumb movements like this. And I know it's not visual, but it's true. That's what gaming is. And I felt like TV and film had been underserved and that hadn't shown gamers in a way that really felt real to me. And so I would always be keen to push for more references. And sometimes people would say, we don't understand this, we don't know this language. In terms of it feeling a niche, I guess I felt like gaming really has moved into much more of the mainstream, and that most people play some form of game. And there's stats about the amount of women, over maybe 50 that play mobile games on their mobiles. I think everyone now understands the idea of, like, even Boris Johnson uses the phrase leveling up. Like, I think gaming vernacular and that thing has moved into a mainstream place. And so it felt like you could get away with having a show that was about that subculture, hopefully in a way that both speaks to that subculture and then can also comment on it and find ways to make it funny. And, you know, things that we do in season 2 about kind of hype culture and that sort of hype cycle about of new games and how you can get locked in that, or you know, loot crates and kind of those microtransactions, you know, the themes hopefully that any gamer can recognize, but that are, I guess, hopefully broad enough that, you know, someone with no interest in games could find a way into it.
Did you do any, Jon, specific sort of research as a writer into particular fandoms and communities? Did you join any yourself, like, you know, just as a spy, kind of like going in there and going, what is this all about? Like, how do you start sort of getting in there and really feeling what communities are like online?
Yeah, I would do a lot of that. I'd be across a lot of different Reddits and Elder Scrolls, and I followed pretty closely the Warcraft and their new releases, Warcraft. Me and producer on the first season, Matthew, went to a LAN party in Kettering for a weekend, which was, I mean, that was quite something as a kind of version of the subculture. That was quite a maximum strength version of it. I remember a guy queuing up at the counter and they were selling bottles, like big bottles of Coke, and they were past their expiry date. And so he was selling them for 10p. And so a guy spent 50p and he bought 5 of these massive bottles of Coke. And I did feel like that was right at the very end of the kind of continuum. And you know, like Meg and Nikki aren't that deeply in. I think I was always keen that they are functional, that they have jobs, that they have relationships. You know, these aren't people who can't function in the world, because that's another stereotype, I guess, of gamers in the past, that they just live in basements. And we show a little bit of that because I think there are those people. But also, you know, the LAN party was the more extreme end. And so it was finding characters that could sit within the real world as well as, and have kind of, you know, one foot in each, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. You've all done a great job in conveying that, for sure. You know, as a gamer myself, you know, I can dress myself. I can do things. So yeah, absolutely, you've all smashed it. In terms of filming on set, Alexa and Charlotte, I wanted to ask, what was it like filming on set? Like, if you get any fun stories to share or anything? We'll start with Charlotte. Oh, who's laughed first? Alexa. We'll start with Alexa then. Go for it.
No, I just think I keep getting asked if we corpse on set, and season 2, I think more so, maybe a lot more so than season 1. Just because some of the scenes and some of the lines in season 2 that we got to say were hilarious. And a lot of my memories of season 2 are just as kind of trying desperately to compose ourselves, because we also shoot the show in a very short time frame. We have to move quickly, and there's always that added pressure, which again makes you laugh more because you know you can't be. But yeah, I've got loads. We have a great time. That's such a rubbish answer. We have a great time.
We do have a great time.
We do though. We have a good time.
It's so good.
What about you, Charlotte? Did you get any stories to share? Or is it just like generally just a good vibe on set?
I'm trying to think of specific things. I can't say them without giving away what happens in the second series.
Can I ask, actually, Charlotte, or Alexa, if you want to answer as well, but I'll start with Charlotte. I've always wondered this when I look at bloopers and things like that on YouTube, and somebody corpses or whatever. How do you compose yourself? It's the end of a day, you're tired, and you know, how do you get there at the end of the day, Charlotte?
It's not easy, because the pressure adds to how funny it is. So, and then there's the double thing of no one else in the room finding it funny except for you and possibly the other person. That also adds to how funny it is. So it's hard. You have to think of like really bad stuff. I find that's the way I get out of it, especially.
Can you tell us what the bad things are, Charlotte? Are you able to tell?
Yeah, I am. So, no, I can't say, because it would ruin this conversation. But,
now I'm thinking they're really bad.
It's bad. You have to go to right, Alexa. You find the same?
I do not do that.
Okay. She's dark. She's the dark horse. What about you, Alexa? How do you? Well, you don't do that, but how do you? You don't go to the dark place.
Alexa just goes, jing, jing, I'm in. Like, she is unreal. She can just go off. It's off. I'm serious. Like that.
It's not though, because I feel like there's so many scenes watching. Like I watched season 1, I watched some of the season 2 episodes again the other day, and I feel like you can see me. You can see how hard I'm breathing to try and. Because that's how I think slowing down your breathing really helps. But that means that in scenes you can see me just there in between my lines going.
It's so funny. It's really. It's nice to do that though. It's much worse when you don't feel like that. When you get through it all really quick with one go.
Now, I wanted to ask a sort of another nerdy question, not to do with games, or it could be to do with games, because at ReadPop, one of the best things that we experience when we're doing the live events at the Comic Cons is just how big the cosplay is. And I'd like to know if any of you have ever cosplayed, and if not, who would you cosplay as? Let's start with Jon.
I have never cosplayed, unfortunately. I think I would like it, but I've never dared to or had the cause to do it. But if I was going to do it, I've always had an interest in the Libyans from Back to the Future. I think they were kind of under-characterized, like they didn't have a lot, and I think I'd like to explore the Libyans. So and maybe like make a van. So I've got like a kind of cardboard box van and a visitor, and then really go deep on the Libyans, their backstory.
Brilliant. And what about you, Alexa? Have you ever cosplayed, or who would you cosplay if you haven't done so already?
I have never cosplayed either. Feels like we're in like a weird group where we're admitting things. I've never cosplayed, but I love it. I go to Star Trek conventions once a year, and that's one of my favorite things is just watching them. And I think I'd want to go for something because in F Series 1 we do cosplay, and it was incredibly uncomfortable. It was very sweaty. I had pauldrons, I had a muscle suit, I had a wig. So I think I'd go for something where it's just, I would do like Ellie from Last of Us, where it's like jeans, a t-shirt and a rucksack.
Yeah.
Nice.
I was going to say like Wayne's World or something. It's like just jeans and a t-shirt, or like just like do a Bill and Ted. A character in their pajamas would suit me fine. What about you, Charlotte? Go for it.
I'm going to, in the future, be Alexa's avatar when she ends up playing Harry Potter on PS5. Like that.
Amazing. Good answer. So this is the last question, because that's all we have time for today, sadly. But before we go, do you have any final comments to give to fans ahead of season 2? Let's start with you, Jon.
I think hopefully people will really respond to it. I think we go a little bit deeper into the kind of the game as it sits in the culture. So there's a bit more of not just about the game itself, but the kind of direction that the developers are taking the game and those kind of hype cycles being monetized. And then we also open it out a bit more because we can basically go anywhere in the world. So we've got stuff in South Korea and some stuff in the Philippines. And so hopefully the whole world, we've just opened it out a little bit more, kind of opened the lens out a little bit. And, there's lots of great stuff with Meg, Nikki and Alison. They're kind of the triangle of those three is, I think, a lot stronger. So the domestic stuff is bigger. And then we've also kind of opened it out a little bit more. So there's just a bit more, there's space for it to be about, bigger stuff outside of the flat.
Brilliant. And what about you, Alexa? What would you like to say to fans ahead of season 2?
Just that I hope they like it because I like it. I do think it's better than the first series. And that if anybody says anything bad about it at all, I will find it and I will be unhappy. So don't say anything bad about it because you can't.
Okay, brilliant. And finally, Charlotte.
Yeah, same as that. I wish I could say that about everything I've ever done. I feel so bad with everything. Yeah, the same. I'm so excited. I think the new series is really, really, really brilliant. I can't wait for people to see it. I agree with what those guys said.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Well, it has been absolutely lovely. Jon, Alexa and Charlotte, I'm really looking forward to season 2. Thank you very much for stopping by and spending some time with us here at the Metaverse. Thank you very much for watching and we'll see you again soon. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.